Hello, my name's Jennifer, welcome back to my channel. This is the Mookse and the Gripes book tag. I was kindly tagged in this by Bob from Bob the Bookerer, and the original tag was created by SHAWN the book MANIAC. I'll link both their channels down below, and I'll also link some details about the origins of the tag as well. This is a really simple tag. All you need to do is list 10 books which are on your bucket list, so books that you want to read sometime in your lifetime. This is quite good timing because I had been planning on filming a video quite soon about 5 big books that I want to read, books that are quite long but which I keep putting off because of how long they are. So I'm not going to bother with that video. The first 5 books that I'm going to talk about are those books that are long books that I've been planning to read for a little while. Just a disclaimer before I start to say that although all these books are on my bucket list, so books that I would like to head to at some point in my life, it might not be that I finish all of them. I will happily DNF any book that I'm not enjoying or getting something out of. So yeah, the fact that they're on my bucket list means that I want to give them all a go. I might not necessarily get to the end of them all. So, okay, first book on the list is The Unconsoled by Kazuo Ishiguro. So, this is a book that I actually tried to read several years ago. And how far did I get? I reckon I probably got maybe about 80 odd pages into this, and I put it to one side. The reason for that is that this is this book has a very dreamlike quality. The main character in this book doesn't know what's real and what's not. And I'll just read out a paragraph from the blurb. So, Ryder, a renowned pianist, arrives in a central European city he cannot identify for a concert he cannot remember agreeing to give. But then, as he traverses a landscape by turns eerie and comical and always strangely malleable, as a dream might be, he comes steadily to realise he is facing the most crucial performance of his life. So, it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying this book when I was reading it, but at the time I was reading it, it was either while I had a period of being quite unwell or when I was just starting to get better. So to read a book that was had such a dreamlike, unreal quality to it wasn't the right time for me to be reading that book then. But it is one I want to head back to at some point, and I actually want to read all of Ishiguro's works at some point. So far I think I've read 5 of his novels, but I do want to head to them all, and this is probably going to be the next one that I head to. Okay, number two on this list is The Sea by Iris Murdoch. Now, Iris Murdoch is an author who obviously I've known of for a long time, but for some reason she's never been an author who I've thought to pick up any books by, until I saw Bob from Bob the Bookerer do a video a little while ago all about Iris Murdoch's work and about her life, which was really, really interesting. And The Sea obviously is her most famous novel. She won the Booker Prize for it. I actually did read another book by Iris Murdoch a few months ago called The Unicorn, and I only read that because I happened to see it on the return shelf at the library. And I'll insert a picture of the cover here, but it's got a really gothic cover of this spooky looking house, and the story followed the main character who'd gone to stay with some people in this house in the middle of nowhere, and there's various family relations there, and they've got secrets in the past and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it. It was my kind of thing. So that makes me even more keen to head to more Iris Murdoch. I saw Kieran from KD Books do a video about The Sea, and he compared it to the reality show X on the Beach. And now I've never seen that show, but that just makes me want to read the book even more. I believe what I think The Sea is about is I think the main character is this quite an unlikable man who I think his exes emerge from the sea. I don't know, but that just sounds interesting to me. So I definitely want to head to that one at some point. And actually The Sea, out of all these books, is probably the one that I'm more likely to get to soonest out of all of the books on this list. Okay, book number 3 on my bucket list is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. Now, this book, I think, is like over 1,000 pages long or something, which is crazy. But the simple reason why I want to read it is because last year, one of my favourite books that I read last year was Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, which has now won this year's Women's Prize. And I love this book so much. This is actually quite a short book compared to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And I love the writing in this book. I don't really know that much about Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell at all, but purely because it's been written by Susanna Clarke is the reason why I want to give it a go at some point. Okay, number 4 on this list is one of the more intimidating books, I would say, for me on this list. It's Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Now, I haven't read any works of Russian, well, the only work of Russian literature I've read, I think, is Lolita by Nabokov. I read that earlier this year and liked it. And I'm interested to give some other Russian works of literature a go. I don't know that much about this, but it follows a what sounds like quite an unlikable character. I like unlikable characters, who believes that extraordinary men who contribute much to society by their thinking are above the law, and in order to prove his theory, he decides to murder someone. And then he's in a moral dilemma, trying to get away with a perfect murder. So the broad outline of the story sounds like something that would be interesting to me, but even just flicking through it, it looks very, very dense, and I'm not sure how I'm going to get on with it, but I like to give it a go at some point. And then book number 5 on this list is one that I really know very little about. It's The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. This I had heard of, but Carolyn from Carolyn H. Hampsey did a video on this a few months ago, and she really, really loved it. And the way she spoke about this book makes me want to pick it up. Now, what does concern me, I think this is like 800 odd pages long. As I've heard a couple of people say that it takes like a good half of the book before you really get into it, or before the plot kicks in or something, which worries me because I am a DNFer. But at least if I know going into it that, you know, it'll pick up in the second half or whatever, then maybe that will encourage me to push through. And the only thing I do know about this book is I think at the start of each chapter it's got some like lunar map, which if you understand these things, apparently that would give you a clue as to what's going to happen in that chapter. I don't understand those things, so that's not going to help me at all. Okay, so those are the 5 big books that have been on my list to read for a little while. Book number 6 on this list is a book which I actually DNF'd earlier this year, and that's Beloved by Toni Morrison. So I think it was towards the start of the year that I tried to read this. I think I read about half, and it's not a very long book, but for some reason I found it quite confusing, I think, and I struggled to follow kind of, I think, who was who or what was going on, and I don't know why that was, because I've never heard anyone else say that about this book, but I think it obviously just wasn't the right time for me to be reading it, so I thought to myself no, because I was finding that I started sort of almost skim reading it, and I thought no, stop reading it, come back to it at another time. So at some point I do want to head back to it and read it again, and I've noticed that my library actually has a reading group set of this book, so I might at some point, possibly next year, select it as a book for my reading group to read. I've not read any other Toni Morrison, and I was going to ask, do people, if you've read several Toni Morrison books, is Beloved the best place to start with Toni Morrison, or would you recommend starting somewhere else? Let me know. Okay, so the next 2 books on this list are both classics, which I was sort of planning on heading to at some point next year. So the first of those is Emma by Jane Austen. I've mentioned this a few times on my channel in that I have never actually read any Jane Austen. I've tried to several times over the years and never got very far with it. But I think I would like to give it one last go with Emma next year. The reason I would like to give Emma a go is because one of my favourite films is Clueless, which is loosely based on the plot of Emma. I did try to read Emma as a teenager, didn't get very far, so I am planning on giving that another go at some point next year. Book number 8 on this list is another classic. It's Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is a second-hand copy I picked up a couple of weeks ago and it's in pristine condition. Gemma from Gem of Books recommended this to me as a book that she specifically thinks that I would like. And I think she's right, and I think it is a book that I would like. I think I may have tried to read it a while ago and just not got very far with it for some reason. But at some point next year I want to give this a go because, I mean, it should be, I should really like this book. I love like Gothic literature and this is like the original Gothic novel. So yeah, I want to head to this at some point next year. Okay, and then the final 2 books on this bucket list are books that weren't really on my TBR until I started thinking about what I wanted about this video. And so these last 2 books are both books which when I hear someone else talk about them, there's a little voice at the back of my mind that goes, oh, maybe one day you want to give that a go, but without really having any, making any plans to do so, shall we say. Book number 9 then is Illette by Charlotte Bronte. Jane Eyre, I've read several times, but I don't think, I read it several times as a teenager and I'm not so sure if I've read it again since then. It is a book I want to reread at some point soonish. But that is the only book by Charlotte Bronte I've read. So, Illette sounds interesting to me. I think it's meant to be her most autobiographical novel. And it sounds like it has some similarities with Jane Eyre. Sounds like a book I might quite like, so I'd definitely be interested to give that a go at some point. And then book number 10, final book on this bucket list, is the most bucket list of all of these books. It's the book which I don't know when I'll ever get to it, and even now I'm thinking, do I really want to read it? Maybe. I don't even know that much about it, but it's Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. So I haven't read any books by Tolstoy before. I don't really know that much about the plot of Anna Karenina. I've not seen any of the movie adaptations or anything. But it's a book that whenever I hear someone talk about it, I think maybe I might want to give that a go at some point. But yeah, that is the most bucket list of all these books. That is really like a maybe someday in my lifetime I will give that book a go. But I don't know when that day will be. So that's the end of the tag, but I need to tag some people. So I want to tag Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf and Abby from Naked History. If you don't follow their channels, I'll link them down below. I would highly recommend you check them out because I love watching both of their channels. If you haven't been tagged in this video but you're interested in giving it a go, then consider yourself tagged because I think this is a really interesting one and I'd be really keen to hear your answers. Okay, so that's all for today. I'll speak to you all again soon. I hope you're doing well. Bye.